I'm going to start going live. So you're ready when you are.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, officers, members of the public and esteemed press member tonight, and those, of course, watching at home. Okay, the first item of business tonight is to receive apologies. I know of one apology, and that's Councillor Amy Bryan, and substituting for her is Councillor Barry Panther. Do we have any other apologies? Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the declaration of interests. Do any member or any persons have any declarations of interest tonight in the agenda? I look around, I can't see anybody nodding or wishing to raise their hand, so I'll take that as sent. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. The last one, members will recall, was quite a lengthy process. I wish to extend my thanks for the diligence and patience of all concerned that evening and making sure that we conducted the business thoroughly in terms of the time commitments and the assistance to vote for the extra half-an-hour session to conclude business. So I'd like to record my thanks for that. Is there any comments to be made on the minutes? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a correction because the minute is certainly accords with my memory of the conclusion. And that's on the minutes, item 5, Park Hill Farm. I just wondered, Chair, I think we sort of deferred because we were seeking further information on access and passing points. And I just wondered the progress of that and when the application is likely to come back to the committee.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll hand over to officers.
Thank you, Chair. We have received the additional information from the agent, which sets out the location of all the passing places, has photographs of each of those passing places. The case officer visited the site on, I think, Friday last week to verify the information that had been submitted. So it's likely that the application will be on the agenda for the December committee. It's just that it wasn't received early enough for us to get it onto this one. Okay.
A proposer and seconder, please, that we receive the minutes as read, if there's no more corrections. Councillor Hutchinson, do we have a seconder? Councillor Panther, thank you very much. That is received, thank you. The next substantive item on the agenda is the application for major development land north of Pepper Street, Keele, Seddon Homes. Members perhaps recall who were on this planning committee that this application has been to Newcastle many times under different guises and was last approved for outline planning permission. So that has been established. This is to do with the actual conditions that were imposed as a ruling on that item. I'd like to hand you over to the officers who will introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, this, as you'll see on the agenda report, this is an application to remove a condition of the original planning permission for this site, which granted outline consent in 2014 for up to 100 dwellings. The condition 21 of that consent stated that there should be no impact piling undertaken during the construction of the development. The applicant is seeking to remove that condition, and they've submitted a noise impact assessment that was requested by Environmental Health. The location of the site is shown on the screen there for you. So you can see that the nearest residential properties are to the south of the site. There's some there on Pepper Street, and then these ones on Quarry Bank. So following receipt of the additional information sought by Environmental Health, they have no objections to the application, and you'll see that we're recommending that that condition is removed.
For that, I'll open it now to members.
Thank you very much, Chair. I know this location well. Obviously, it sits within my ward. I travel that way quite regularly to get from my house to my parents' house. I do have a number of concerns. I have, in the last couple of years, spent a significant amount of my work life whilst piling was being done to produce a building. And it's not a quiet thing. And that was to produce a singular building. And once the foundations had been piled, then that work didn't carry on. In this development, piling would be ongoing throughout the development as houses are built. So it does have a risk of creating a noise disturbance on an ongoing basis throughout the development of the site itself. I note that the data provided is modelling data that site sits within the inner bit of a valley. If those of you who don't know the area all that well, it's quite a small valley area with high potential to echo. And I do have significant concerns for the residents, not just the residents on Quarry Bank. As you can see, part of the site is in incredible close proximity to a number of houses, but also you can't quite see it on that map, but just the other side of Hayling Wood is the north part or the uppermost part of Parkside, which also will be, oh, you can see now, thank you very much, which also will be potentially impacted by the sound. I do have to say, I'm quite concerned that within this, there is just a simple removal of that condition. Obviously, that condition was placed, and I went back through the original planning application on concern that piling works could create significant noise that would be of concern. And simply removing that condition really does concern myself quite a bit. I would have liked to have seen a variation of the condition to include what would happen if the noise disruption was above a certain level. Because as far as I can tell, if it turns out that the modelling data isn't 100% accurate and that noise does breach a certain level, our only recourse then would be a statutory nuisance complaint. And having seen how long that takes, I'm not sure that we'd get that through the process before all of the work was done. What I would have liked to have seen, considering it's a removal of a condition, that we would have had an upper limit with some safeguarding for residents, that if sound breached those upper limits, there would be some recourse, namely a halt of activities on the site and a revisiting of the removal of that piling condition. As it is, I cannot support removal of that condition. I think it will impose significant noise levels for residents, and I do have concerns that if the modelling data doesn't play out in reality, there's nothing we as a council can do that will stop that apart from asking nicely, which I don't think is really going to achieve very much.
Thank you for that, Councillor Jones. Just checking with officers, we can actually recommend a change of conditions to vary it in terms of perhaps timings and
yes, we could recommend a variation of the condition rather than a removal. But if I may, could I just respond to your query, I suppose, really about the timing of it. The assessment that's been submitted says that it's anticipated that 3 plots per day would be piled, and the piling activities would be continuous for a 1-week period. So within that 1 week, they would do 3 plots per day. Then it would stop, and then there would be a 4-month break while they do the rest of the construction, and then the piling would recommence and they would do another week in that way. So rather than it being continual, it would be for a week and then a 4-month break. But yeah, as I said, we could look to recommend variation of the condition if that's what members would prefer.
So we'll carry on with the debate. Councillor Panther.
Thank you, Chair. I also share the concerns of Councillor Jones in this matter. I do know the area very well. I was surprised that there was nothing in the initial report to say how long this pile driving would carry on. And I'm grateful to your officer for highlighting that matter a bit. However, it's going to be on, off, on, off. We've got enough health problems in that area with the matter, ill health debates coming off the landfill side. This as well will only aggravate the situation, I think. At the moment, can see no reason why I can support the initial application. It depends on what the variation could be. Apart from that, Chair, I'll see what anyone else says.
Hunter, any of the members wish to speak on this item? Councillor Holland.
Question for our officers, if I may. There are 3 objectors, including Keele Parish Council, but one of our consultees is the Environmental Health Division. They are happy with the discharge of the condition, but our officers have asked if we can encourage the developer to adopt best practices and sign up to the considerate contractors scheme. Is it possible for us to condition a subscription to the considerate contractors scheme, perhaps as a variation of the condition? I understand that carries with it some obligations for the developer. Would it be possible for us to require that?
By other legislation separate to planning legislation, so it wouldn't be a condition that we would be looking to impose, but there is a condition on there as well about requiring a construction management plan, and that management plan was approved several years ago when the initial details were submitted. But what we're looking to do, and it addresses it in the report, is require that we would be rewording that condition to require an updated construction management plan to be submitted for approval, and that sets out various requirements for during the construction process. But in terms of putting a condition on that requires them to comply with the legislation that you referred to, we wouldn't be looking to normally put such a condition on.
To speak? Okay. In that case, then, do we have a? Sorry, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, so just to make your job a little bit easier, I'll move refusal on the basis that I don't feel confident that we would be able to vary the condition to the level to protect residents in a way that I feel reasonable tonight. Therefore, I feel that all we can do at this point, or all I can recommend at this point, is to move for refusal of that.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Panther. I'll take it to the vote then. Will members please show by waving their hands whether they support that proposal? Fails then, doesn't it? Oh, sorry. That fails, doesn't it? Fails. You need to do the others in cases. There could be abstentions. Yeah, okay, thank you. Who's for the recommendation as set out in the report? Can I have a show of hands, please? Sorry, on the resolution, those against the resolution proposed by Councillor Jones. Against? Yes, it is. Six. So that fails. So the item is. Yeah, okay. So in that case, we need another proposal in terms of recommendation that would satisfy us. Would anybody like to make that proposal, please?
Mr. Chairman, I will move the recommendation as printed.
Can we ask what modifications can be made?
you're voting and proposing on whether we should accept proposal made by Councillor Jones, which failed. Councillor Holland.
I think what Councillor Panther is angling at is before we move to a vote on the proposal that's been made but not seconded by Councillor Fear, whether there is any further consideration the committee can give to a variation of this condition that would be acceptable to the committee. And with that in mind, I can't suggest anything myself, but do our officers have any advice to give that might help us to formulate something? Otherwise, I will be minded to second what Councillor Fear has proposed.
I think to tie down the real detail of that, I'd have to liaise with our environmental health division, but I would be satisfied that we could have a condition that was along the lines that Councillor Jones mentioned initially, that that we would vary the condition to say that if noise levels exceeded a certain level, then they would, I'm just wondering how we could do it. They would have to.
Chair, I think there is a way around this. There's
Yeah.
a technical solution to it. I think we just need to get our
Mm.
heads around what that wording is with our colleagues in environmental protection. So if members accept the principle of that, it's something perhaps we could discuss the detail with you, Chair, and the Vice Chair, so that you feel confident that that embraces the spirit of what the members are concerned about, and then we can then issue the decision on that basis. So be subject to agreement with yourself and the Vice Chair, and so essentially that'll be delegated so that we can get the wording right. Does that make sense?
Does that make sense to members? Councillor Holland.
I understand, Chair. I'm not sure whether Councillor Jones and those who were against approving this outright would necessarily be happy with, I don't wish to speak for them, but I'm not sure whether they'd be as happy with that as they would be with a deferral, such that it would come back to this committee once our officers had sought advice from the environmental department on noise thresholds and a mechanism for such a variation to work. I mean, my hope would be that something could be drafted with our expertise that would be acceptable to Councillor Panther and to Councillor Jones and others. Would deferral be an acceptable thing for me to propose right now?
Yeah.
Yes, Chairman, there is, yes, there's as Dan was alluding to, that there are hours of operation we can look at as well. But I think to wrap it up, so there is the entirety before members, then I think just deferring it for another month, we can get that wrapped up and brought back to members, so it's crystal clear.
Councillor Moffat, before I go any further, I'll let you in. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. And I might have missed it in the report, but the officer said that in terms of the piling, it would be 1 week and then there would be 4 months. Is that written anywhere?
It is. It's written within the noise impact assessment
And
that
that's the
environmental
condition.
health sought and was provided. Yeah.
Okay. and
So
that
it's on
is
the
a
basis
condition.
of the information within that noise assessment that environmental health are satisfied.
In which case, and I was also going to suggest perhaps a deferment until we get some more reassurances.
Okay, we have a proposal for deferment. I'm happy to second that from the chair. Can I see a show of hands, please, in favour of that? That's clearly carried. Thank you. Next item of business is land south of Honeywell Lane, Madeley Heath. Let's introduce this one.
So this is a site that was granted planning permission several years ago for up to 35 dwellings. There was a section 106 with that outline application that gave that required various contributions and affordable housing. They then came back to the committee in November last year with the Reserve Matters application, but also seeking to modify the Section 106. And they submitted a financial viability assessment at that time. And on the basis of that, it was accepted that the development couldn't sustain the policy compliant contributions, and so there was a lesser contributions were agreed. But in those circumstances, because the viability appraisal is done at a particular moment in time, and in accepting that things change over time in terms of the economics, we would always look to have within the Section 106 that if the development is not substantially commenced within 12 months of the date of the decision, then we require them to come back with another viability appraisal. So unfortunately, for various reasons, there's been delays in sorting out that variation of the Section 106, and it still remains incomplete. So because the date that they need to achieve a substantial commencement is within 12 months of the date of the decision on the Reserve Matters application, it now means that they need to achieve substantial commencement by the 11th of January, and they haven't actually got that Section 106 signed and resolved yet. So clearly there is insufficient time for them to be able to make that substantial commencement, because it's not just a commencement, it's a substantial commencement, and that's defined in this case as completion to damp-proof course of no fewer than 6 dwellings and the construction to base course of the access road. So on that basis, they're asking for an extension to that 12-month period for another 6 months, so that it's a total of an 18-month period. They're confident that the Section 106 will be signed very soon, and that they will then be able to make a commencement on site and achieve substantial commencement by within that 18-month time period, which would expire on the 11th of July rather than the 11th of January. So officers are recommending that in the circumstances, it's reasonable to allow that additional 6 months. Thank you.
For that, do we have any speakers on this? Okay, I'll throw it over to members. Over to you. Councillor Fear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Could I just ask the officer where the delays have been incurred with the S106? I mean, is this something that's on our side? Is it something that's on the applicant's side? Because I think all members are a little bit wary of these things being prorogued and prorogued and prorogued. I've read the report. I can see the point here, but my feeling would be that were we to do this, we should also be sending a message that thus far and no further, and that we would expect this matter to be resolved within those extra 6 months. And therefore, we shouldn't be expecting this to come back again, because we have had this in the past, and it's very irritating. So it'd be interesting to know just where the delays have occurred. And as I say, I would be minded to vote for this recommendation, but with the rider that I would not be minded to vote for another recommendation of this sort were it to come in the future.
I believe Councillor White wants to speak on this. He did send a request through yesterday, but I've just been informed that he is waiting to speak. Councillor White, are you there? Councillor White?
Yes, I'm here, Chair. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, certainly can. Would you like to go ahead, please?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted really to say to the committee members that I'm in support of the officer recommendation. Whilst it is unusual for a 106 to be extended, there was fairly extenuating circumstances here. There was issues with land ownership which delayed it substantially. The developer does want to go ahead. The community wants this development to go ahead. It is in a sustainable location, and previously it was brought to committee because there was problems with the 106 community element of the allocation. That was subsequently agreed, so there is £80,000 due to go to the local community in Madeley Heath. There is also monies to the local schools, and as I said, it's in a sustainable area, and there is a reasonable reason for this request. So I'm asking committee members to please accept the recommendation, and that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Right, over to members again. And members like to speak on this? Councillor Panther.
Thank you, Chair. I take note of what Councillor Fear said, and be quite honestly, I would move to second his initial proposal on that.
Do we have any more speakers on this item? Go ahead.
If you sort of excuse the intervention, Chair, it's not so much the actual application that's before us, but this whole question of 106 agreements. Speaking as a relatively new member of the committee, I do find it somewhat complicated. I think at the start of the cycle, it was Councillor Fear who suggested that members might benefit from some training on 106 agreements. I'd certainly class myself as in that category. And if it's possible, you know, for members to get some sort of guidance on how this system works, I'd certainly appreciate that. I mean, if that could be done before a committee meeting or even some material online, I would certainly benefit, Chair. Otherwise, I don't disagree with what has been said by previous members on this.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll give that some thought and get back to you on that. So we have a recommendation to approve this from Councillor Fear and the seconder from Councillor Panther. Can I see all those in favour of the proposal and seconder, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So that concludes the substantial items for tonight. The next item of business is urgent business, and I propose that we go into closed session for this one, please, which means exclusion of the public. Thank you. Want to vote for that? Proposed by Councillor Holland, seconded by myself. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you.
The stream has ended.